Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome. I'm Roger Stone, right here at 77 WABC, the crown jewel of talk radio. I have many fond memories of driving my 1965 yellow Volkswagen Bug convertible at John Jay High School right there in Katona, New York, listening to Cousin Brucey and Dan Ingram right here at 77 WABC, the station, well, that I grew up where. I'm so proud to be in the 77 WABC family. You know, if I cut myself, well, I don't bleed blood, I bleed politics, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Folks, what we have going on today in the country is Kamalamania. It is a media-created hoax, a psyop in which they juice the polls by oversampling Democrats. They keep her away from one-on-one interviews, press conferences where she might have to speak. They limit her speaking to teleprompters, which candidly she's still not even that good at. And she's picked a turkey for a running mate. This guy, this kind of progressive, who seemed to be the lesser of all evils, they determined that Shapiro would cost them among Muslim American voters in Michigan and Minnesota, and they were, I think, growingly worried that even had he been the candidate, Josh Shapiro, there would have been an examination of the role of the Pennsylvania State Police outside the perimeter of the Butler, Pennsylvania assault and near assassination of Donald Trump and the tragic death of Italian-American firefighter Corey Comparatori. As well as his handling of a murder case that has popped up in the news now, where he seems to have connections to some in the case who may have been donors of his. But in Walz, he got a running mate, incredibly, who, when he was governor and terrorists attacked and destroyed a statue of Christopher Columbus outside the state capitol, refused to defend it or to replace it. He got a rebuke from the Italian-American Civil Rights League for that. That's only one of the many things we're going to talk to right now about our guest, Robert Davi. Now, Robert Davi is a Renaissance man. He's a multi-dimensional star, a winning, prolific actor. The beginning scene in Goonies, one of my all-time favorites. He's been in over 150 films. He's a screenwriter, he's a director, he's a producer. But what many may not know is this guy has a set of pipes you wouldn't believe. I mean, he is a saloon singer in the style of Old Blue Eyes himself, but he's also an outspoken American I could go through his films, but you know them. I mean, he's the most famous of the Bond villains. He is also a good friend. I'm delighted to have my good friend, Robert Davi, join us today on the Roger Stone Show right here at 77 WABC Radio. Robert, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Roger. And I grew up in Long Island, and I think I'm a year older than you. So I didn't have that car, but I listened to 77 ABC and Dan Ingram and Cousin Brucey all the time. We listened to that station when I was a kid growing up.
So let's talk about this because I think, as most of my listeners know, that I'm half Italian, that the name Stone was plucked out of thin air by some maybe not so kindly clerk at Ellis Island. And my real family name is Corbo. My people come from Sicily. You and I have broken bread, yes. and I consider you a paisan. I find this, and we see it in New York City as well, where they're constantly talking about moving the statue in the city council of Christopher Columbus. I view this as an attempt to bury our heritage, to destroy the culture that Italian Americans have brought to this great nation. What say you?
Many of these things, and it's a big lie. It's a big lie, Roger, and I think this subject is so important because it encompasses many, many aspects to what is going on in society today. I have a lot of thoughts on the subject, and I'd like to start quickly just to reference people that in 2015, when Mount McKinley, the highest point in North America, was renamed by Obama to Mount Denali. Now, McKinley was a GOP guy. He opened up Alaska, instituted the gold standard, was against slavery. His family was against slavery. And they changed the name of McKinley. I wrote an article on Breitbart at that day and said, this is the first shot around the world. Now, I didn't know in 2020 they were going to start the statues. And I blame Pelosi, an Italian-American who's a traitor to the Italian Americans. When those statues came down in Baltimore, where her dad was one time, D'Alessandro, the mayor of Baltimore, she says, well, people will do what people do. When Father Junipero Serra, a saint, when the Pope came in 2015, she went to that statue and prayed with the Pope. She's a hypocrite. And the statue came down, and she says, in San Francisco in 2020, and people will do what people do. She never defended one thing. So Christopher Columbus coming down in Baltimore and the revisionist, it starts also with education. Education has been hijacked, as we know. You know better than anyone, Roger. You know the lies the left is telling me. We live in 1984. That George Orwellian dystopian movie they should watch with John Hurt and Richard Burton, where they change language, they change history, they change everything to get control. And at one time, it was said that was a pro-communist movie, and that's why they didn't show it in America and stuff like this. But it's more than that. It's showing the exact idea of when freedom is attacked. And Columbus, I did the movie Christopher Columbus, The Discovery in 1992. That's when a big attack on Columbus started. The revisionists started to really wave a lot of issues about that and tell lies about Columbus. I went to Spain. He filmed in Spain, Malta, the Virgin Islands. Marlon Brando was in that film. And I did research with the historians that are custodians of the voyages. What I found, my last name, like you, is Sicilian. It's Davi. Ellis Island kept Davi, but they took the accent over the I. When I did this film, they said to me, the experts, I played a character called Martin Pinzon. There are statues to him in Spain. They said, by the way, was there an accent over your name? I said, yes. My grandfather said they were from the town of Torrette near Palermo. They said, I said, but they took it off at Ellis Island. But my grandfather told me there was yes. He says, well, there were Davies on all three voyages. All three voyages. They showed me the logs. Now, at that time, there was the uprising, the Moors. There was a lot of conflicting things happening in Spain at the time. So a lot of Sephardics, a lot of other people were taking voyages and going. Columbus never had a slave. Columbus was a very spiritual man. He was almost considered a brother. He was of the Franciscan style. He prayed daily, communicated daily, had communion daily. He did not, it's such a lie what the left is telling us and what they've indoctrinated our kids with. It's such a lie. And if people really did the research, he wasn't a violent man. He did not institute slave trade. You know, I mean, it's stunning to me that the left can get away with these lies, with these manipulations in our textbooks, and they say nothing. And we do nothing. There should be a commission against this kind of revisionist history. Yes, you can have grievances and all of that stuff. But for that time, 500 years ago, 1492, how can you qualify a man based on 500 years when the Moors were the ones that were selling slaves? I mean,
you know, you're absolutely right. Particularly when they'd rather give our school children pornography rather than history. It's an attempt to erase our culture. Oh, he displaced indigenous people. I guess that's the argument. Speaking for the Italian American Civil Rights League, Mike Crispy, who's a board member, said Tim Walz did nothing to stop the radical vandals from targeting, they announced that, by the way, the most prominent symbol of Italian American culture in what was a flagrant hate crime. The governor knew they were coming. He did nothing to protect the statue. And then after the statue was destroyed, Walz refused to replace the statue and said that the perpetrators had, quote unquote, legitimate grounds. The statue had been there since 1931. It is it's amazing what is happening in this country. Go ahead.
How can anyone look at this guy knowing that he took 30 trips to China? He has his honeymoon on the same day as Tiananmen Square. He took that date. The Chinese Cultural Revolution, and the same thing Bernie Sanders did in Moscow. He had his wedding date in Russia. So two guys, prominent. We have been infiltrated. There is truth and there is untruth. Freedom is to be able to say 2 and 2 equal 4. If that's granted, all else follows. We are in an uncharted era. 2 and 2 equals whatever you wish. So freedom is on life support. And they started with the youth years ago in these textbooks. And this guy is a dangerous person. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing because he seems like, you know, a nice uncle from wherever he might be. And he will say anything, as Kamala Harris will say anything, to manipulate the minds. And I don't understand how people in New York and other places in this country can continue to vote this kind of betrayal in office, in public office.
It is interesting. Walz is quoted as saying one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness, which is quite extraordinary. Supports sanctuary cities and states. He delayed 3 days when the mayor of Minneapolis asked for the National Guard in the 2020, it was May 2020 riots. And then after the city burned, blamed the mayor, even though the mayor didn't have the statutory authority to call out the guard. He is required that all public men's rooms, including the boys' rooms in the public schools, have tampon dispensers, which is, I mean, he wants to stop fracking, phase out all fossil fuels. I mean, the guy is, he is a taxer. He is, more importantly, as we'll learn from our next guest, J.R. Majewski, a U.S. Air Force veteran, he has very clearly lied not once, not twice, but repeatedly about his service to the country. Let's leave Mr. Walz behind for a moment and move to his running mate. We've got about 2 minutes before the break, and then we'll pick this up also on the other side. But Robert Davi, writing for Breitbart, a great piece, he says, I've been an actor and director in Hollywood almost my entire life. It is a world of make-believe, not only on screen but off. There's nothing that makes executives more nervous than a first-time director with no experience. Someone in charge of an entire production who has never been in charge. But Hollywood has solved that problem over and over again by surrounding the first-timer with all the right people, from the cinematographer to the production designer to the writers, directors, and on and on. We all know Hollywood's involvement with the left. We all understand their goal. So what do they do with the political equivalent of a first-timer? That would be Kamala Harris, with no executive experience, an unlikability factor that's through the roof, and an inability to go improv, as you put it, or go off script. Not to mention a cackle that makes you want to cry. It's like fingerprints on a chalkboard. It's simple, you say. It's a rebrand. The cackle is simply one word. It's joy. You've already started to hear it. You will continue to hear it until November. Ignore her policies, ignore her background, ignore her record, ignore everything about her. Yes, they're going to tell us Kamala Harris is filled with joy. You go on to say the rebrand is now complete. Throw in the immense value of teleprompters at every turn and a complicit media that doesn't push her to do any interviews or go off script, and you've got yourself a movie. I called it a psyop. I could not have written this better myself. From the point of view of politics, I see the exact same thing. They are reinventing her before our very eyes. God forbid that she may address an issue. I, Robert, do not think it will work. I think the American people want to feel like they know their president. They know Donald Trump, warts and all. They know him. This woman, they're going to try to hide him like they did Biden. I don't think that's going to work. With about a minute and a half here before we go to the break, and we'll pick it up on the other side. What say you?
Well, I say this. I call her also Joy Mala. It's Joy Mala. And I think they put this teacher, the high school teacher, and the coach to take her and start tutoring her. I think he's her tutor. He's her lefty tutor to go in there for talking points and everything else. I think that's part of that. I think it's a frightening aspect because when I grew up, Roger, as you know, my family said, and our Christian Judeo values always say, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Lying is a sin. Lying is a sin in Christianity. I believe it's so in Judaism and perhaps other religions, but lying is a sin. And the ancient Romans had a thing called the calumny clause in ancient Rome. And if somebody lied against someone, they would have to then suffer the consequence of the false lie that they did on someone else. But that being said, Kamala Harris, it's a danger to our nation. And authenticity. Donald Trump is the first authentic politician we have ever had. And we've been crying for decades. I'm a little older than you, like a year, but for decades, people have been looking for the authentic politician, the authentic person. Here he is. And because he is authentic, because he doesn't make a couple of little missteps, as we all do in life, and because he's just putting it out there, he's not rehearsed and studied and hammered over like a cheap piece of tin to give it. He's absolutely transparent, and he stayed, as you know, because you've known him longer than anyone. He stayed on some of the same things. He may have made other issues changing, but he has stayed authentic his whole career. We have the inauthenticity. And what is astounding to me, Hollywood, you look for an authentic performance from an actor. You're able to see that. You're able to kind of say, I don't believe it. But they don't say it to her. They flock around it. It's astounding. It's 1984. It's 1984, that George Orwellian book where people have to say 2 + 2 = 5.
All right, folks, if you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show, and we'll be right back with actor, director, writer, but my all-time favorite saloon singer, Robert Davi. Don't go away.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss.
Oof, like wind in your hair carefree.
Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree.
Yes.
Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree?
He's on a roll now.
Spit toothpaste on the faucet?
You got it. You got it.
Peanut butter on the light switch.
Oh, spritz, spritz.
Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back.
Use as directed.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
I'm Roger Stone, and we're back with Robert Davi, international multidimensional star, entertainer, an award-winning prolific actor with over 150 films under his belt, but also a screenwriter, director, producer, and one hell of a singer, a great jazz vocalist. I have to ask you a question, Robert, because I studied your biography before the show. It's only 28 pages. And it jumped out at me that you were cast opposite Frank Sinatra in the telefilm Contract on Cherry Street. So you actually worked with old Blue Eyes himself, the chairman of the board. So what was Frank Sinatra, in your experience, like?
Well, he became a friend from there. I was a young actor. He was so supportive of me. And I have an anecdote in terms of his sensitivity. You know, people won't say this, or in terms of his helping people that needed it quietly. They called him Mr. Anonymous for good acts he did. I hear these things that Trump did, and it's a very similar thing. Now, they may not have liked each other. I don't know the history of them. I know there was some issues with the management. And I know the family is a very left-wing family. But Trump would be disgusted. Sinatra would be disgusted on the attack of the Columbus statue and what's happening in our border in America. I mean, he voted for Reagan. I think he was a fan of the campaign for Nixon. He changed from a left guy to a conservative guy, but he was very giving, very supportive. I knew him till he passed in 1998. I have a quick anecdote. I was working as a waiter in New York. I won't say the place. And I got fired. I went in one night, and the general manager said, "Oh, you didn't turn in all your checks," which I did. I was very fastidious. He said, "Look in your drawer where you keep your checks with it." I looked in. There was a check stuffed in there. The check was written incorrectly. It was all wrong. I brought it to him. I said, "Hey, this isn't my check." He says, "I got to let you go." Now, I was doing very good tips there 3 nights a week. And I don't know if at that moment I was supposed to say, what will it cost to keep the job? I had to maybe pay him. I was just stunned. So I walk out of there. That put a fire under my my creative juices. And I wound up getting 3 months later co-starring with Sinatra in this special, and then brought me to Hollywood. Now, Harry Guardino was in the film. I told Harry Guardino this story. And about a month into filming, he says to me, "Hey, we're going to go to dinner with the old man. Come on." And we get in the limousine, and there was Martin Gables and Jilly Rizzo and a couple of other guys and Harry and myself. And we're driving up, and I'm thinking we're going to go to Patsy's on West 54th or the pizzeria in Harlem. And there's a U-turn, and they stop right in front of the restaurant I got fired from. I go into the restaurant. Of course, everybody I look at Sinatra. I look at Harry. They both have Cheshire Cat grins on their face, and Sinatra says, "Come on, let's go eat." We go into this place. Everyone turned white. The general manager was there. He turned different shades of white, almost fell out. And so one of the guys that was with us says, "I'll be right back." He comes back later, and brings me an envelope. I go, "What's this?" He goes, "That's for you." I go, "What is it?" I open it up. There's a check. He goes, "It's your severance pay." The guy, Sinatra, hated injustice like that. And they liked me a lot. And when I had the scarring, he said to me, "Hey, I had scarring in my neck." He says, "Were you a forceps baby?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Don't let those scars bother you." He says, and he showed me his on his neck. He says, "I was a forceps baby." And being half Sicilian as he was part Genoa and part Sicilian. So he would really be upset that Columbus, being Genoese, was being disrespected. Anyway, he was a terrific person. And very supportive over the years. He was close friends with Cubby Broccoli, who produced all the Bond films. And when it was, Cubby had seen me in something, and Richard Maybaum, a film I had done, and they called me up the next day and said, "We want you to be the Bond villain." Now, every agency and every big star wanted to be a Bond villain. And as it was going on, and Cubby wanted me anyway, but Frank, Cubby told Frank this, and Frank said, "I'm going with the Italian kid. He's a great actor." And so Sinatra was very supportive over the years.
I actually got to meet him when he flew into Teterboro, was driven to Hoboken, New Jersey for a rally with Ronald and Nancy Reagan. Now, he had some long-time beef with the town fathers, I think, over the naming of a street, but he had vowed never to return to Hoboken as long as he lived. But Nancy Reagan had persuaded him. I picked him up at Teterboro, had one guy with me, and we were driving him the entire way there. He bitched about it. "I shouldn't have been here. I said I was never coming back. This was a mistake. Why am I doing this?" He was extraordinarily crabby. But when I told him, he says, "That's quite a nose you got on you for a guy named Stone." I said, "Well, Mr. Sinatra, my real family name is Corbo." He says, "I knew I liked you, kid." Anyway, in the green room, as soon as Nancy Reagan came in the green room, he melted. He absolutely melted. He did his thing, and then, but the instant his remarks were over, he wanted to go back to Teterboro, but with one condition: we had to make a trip. We had to make a stop at Grimaldi's under the Brooklyn Bridge, so that Frank could take a couple of pizza pies on his private jet with him. He was a true gentleman, and yes, he had really been screwed over by the Kennedys. He was instrumental in John Kennedy's election. Bobby Kennedy didn't want him in the Kennedy entourage. The height of insult was when Jack Kennedy went to Palm Springs. He stayed at the home of Bing Crosby, a Republican. Yeah. That was the beginning of the end for Frank.
Yeah, that was very upsetting to him, and but he liked loyalty, as we all do. You know what I mean? Paramount, but he did so much for JFK. Even the song "High Hopes," he had Sammy Kahn and Jimmy Van Heusen rewrite lyrics for "High Hopes" for Kennedy. And I have to tell you, since we're bringing that up, in Nancy Reagan, I'm in the Reagan film. I play a very small cameo of Leonid Brezhnev. I play Brezhnev. But the producers have also, they asked me, I recorded 2 Sinatra songs that that's going to be in the film as well. I won't tell you which songs, but when you see the film, you'll see that.
This is the new film with Dennis Quaid, correct?
Dennis Quaid, yes.
Yeah, wow,
yes.
I'm really looking forward to this. Really looking forward to
it.
All right, I'm afraid we're just about out of time. I want to thank my good friend, Robert Davi, who is truly a Renaissance man, not just a great actor, not just a great vocalist, just a great entertainer, but a true patriot who understands that, there are those in the entertainment industry, particularly in Hollywood, who keep their political views hidden under a bushel for fear that it will hurt their career. But a man who tells you exactly what he thinks, fearless like Donald Trump in that same way. Robert Davi, thank you so much for joining us here on the Roger Stone
Thank you,
Show.
Roger. I appreciate it. Can I give one shameless plug for a film I feel is very important that I did that's on Amazon Prime? It's called Bardejov, Bardejov. It's currently on Prime, Amazon Prime for free. 1942, true story about the Holocaust. I play an Orthodox Jew who saved 300 girls from Auschwitz. It was produced by a man named Emil Fish, who was a Holocaust survivor, 88-year-old. It's a very powerful film, and it's gotten tremendous reviews, but it has not gotten the attention it should get. Because we did it before October 7th, of course, in Tel Aviv and Slovakia, because Bardejov is a Slovakian town. But it's a true story where this town bands together and they save girls. Most films in the Holocaust find non-Jews saving Jews. This town, because of this character I play, Raoul Lowy, I incite the town, and we save these girls in a very clever, non-violent way. It's a very important film.
All right. Say the name of the film one more time.
Bardejov. Or some people say Bardejov. It's some people don't like the title because it's difficult, but it's a beautiful city. I've been there in Slovakia. Bardejov. Bardejov.
All right, there we have it. Robert Davi, thank you for joining us on The Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, my dear friend.
It's The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
That's right, folks. We're back. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC Radio. We are going to be taking your calls later. That number, of course, is 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Right now, let me say two things. We're going to have Dr. Robert Epstein on with us here in a bit. He is the senior research psychologist at the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology and was the former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today magazine. Dr. Epstein has a PhD from Harvard, and he is a pioneer in the study of how information is manipulated through the Internet. He's going to give us a fascinating interview regarding Google. But now we go to J.R. Majewski. J.R. Majewski joins us from Ohio. He is an Air Force veteran. He is also a former congressional candidate running for Congress in Ohio. He has more than 2 decades of experience, specialized experience in the nuclear energy industry. But in 2022, when J.R. Majewski was running for Congress, he was subjected to the most extraordinary dirty trick that I've seen in the 45 years that I have been in this arena. Essentially, a so-called research group that was fronting for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee illegally and improperly accessed his military service records and completely misrepresented them, planting a story with Associated Press, making it appear that J.R. Majewski was guilty of stolen valor, and destroying his campaign for Congress, where he was leading prior to this fake news attack. J.R. Majewski, thank you for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Roger. It's always a pleasure to be with you, sir.
I think I summed that up pretty well, but now let's tell them the good news. After this dirty trick was perpetrated on you, in which they essentially alleged that you hadn't served when you had served, they were forced to backtrack, weren't they?
Yeah, I continued to petition Congress after the election, and a House investigation found that not only mine, but the records of 12 other Republicans were illegally obtained by this same research group. And I then continued to petition the Air Force, and 11 months after the campaign was over, I was awarded the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, the medal that they accused me of lying about.
And the medal that you were, of course, eligible for based on your service.
Correct.
So, but the reason that we're talking about this today is that Kamala Harris's campaign last week attacked J.D. Vance, who I frankly think is not only the right candidate for vice president, but I really believe that, like Nixon in 1952, he's going to rise to the occasion. There is going to be a defining moment in this campaign in which he proves that he has both the mettle and the courage to be exactly the right man for the job. But they attacked J.D. Vance, saying that he supported a congressional candidate, you, who Kamala Harris's campaign says egregiously lied about his military service and claimed that he was deployed to Afghanistan when he never was. Quoting Vance as saying he was proud to support you despite learning of your stolen valor. That's a lie, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, they tried to do the same thing with the president, insinuating that he was supporting me when they knew that they were lying. And, J.D. Vance and I had become close during his Senate campaign. He was up against some pretty tough MAGA America First Ohioans. And, J.D. Vance and I hit it off, and we talked about our time in service. And, he knew just from interactions with me. And, as someone who endorsed me during my campaign, I found it my obligation to show him what I was producing to the news media. But, unlike the media, JD did not ignore it. And, he spent the time to look through it and realized I was telling the truth. And when time came for me to run again, he was all in he was all for it.
You are, of course, probably Donald Trump's number one fan and supporter in the country. The first time I ever heard of you is because you essentially mowed your lawn or land that you own, so that from the sky it became a giant, like a Donald Trump billboard. It was like Donald Trump landscaping, I guess you would call it. Very cool. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in 2019, 2020, I was my wife and I supported a couple of different veterans groups, and one of the veterans groups here, they take those that have been injured in the war, and they go on outdoorsman adventures, I guess you could say. They go on hunting trips, and what it boils down to is I lost a bet, and I was going to paint the American flag on my lawn, which I had done the year before, but then we made a quick decision in the end to do the Trump 2020 logo. And we did that, and it made national news, and I was brought on to Fox and Friends, and from there, the president saw it and gave me a phone call, and shortly thereafter, probably about 7 or 8 months after that, I decided to run for Congress for the first time.
And I suspect you will run yet again. Right now, you've dedicated yourself to reelecting your friend, President Donald Trump, and I admire you for that, of course. This attack on you and on J.D. Vance is, of course, meant to distract from the fact that we now have a pattern of lies regarding Governor Tim Walz service in the Minnesota National Guard. Yes, the Minnesota National Guard. And let's get into this, because I saw on CNN where they said there's no evidence of that. No, actually, I read in the New York Post that the chaplain of the Field Artillery Regiment that Walz was assigned to said there was no excuse for him to have abandoned the National Guard, and he did so just before a critical deployment. He actually, in essence, went outside the chain of command to get a pass when he knew that his unit was being called up. What happened here?
I mean, it sounds to me like it was just plain cowardice. He was looking on to a better path, and he was entitled to the rank and privilege of being called a chief sergeant major. But in reality, he had absolutely no desire to serve with his peers that were in his unit. And I don't know if you've seen this, Roger, but I think within the last 30 minutes or so, his battalion commander actually released a statement on Facebook. And he really tells the truth about Tim Walz, and it's not pretty. It really is aligned with everything that J.D. Vance has said, and what the Trump campaign has come out and said, that he used the title as a stepping stone, and he has not been honest in his position as governor, nor during his time in Congress. He's essentially benefited from calling himself a command chief sergeant major when he really isn't.
I think it goes further than that. We have an audio where he talks about carrying guns in war. Let's play it.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army, and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
That's very clearly a claim of combat service. I carried in war. He actually testified before a House committee in which he claimed that he suffered from PTSD from his service in Afghanistan, but he wasn't in Afghanistan.
No, he didn't even come close. He was sent to Italy, and to me, that's detrimental to the people that actually did serve, that have suffered, and are still continuing to suffer from PTSD. When you have somebody with a national profile as Tim Walz, even before he became vice president, as a member of Congress, and as the governor of Minnesota, he's really doing a disservice to the people that he claims to support by embellishing his personal experience to further his own personal interests.
The real problem here is I don't think he was properly vetted. I think this was done very quickly. I think that their first choice was, in fact, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. I think, as I said earlier, that Barack Obama convinced Kamala Harris that taking Shapiro would cost them the large Muslim American populations in Michigan and Minnesota. It is very clear that she also looked at Mark Kelly, the astronaut, U.S. Senator from Arizona. I think that fell of its own weight when we learned that Kelly is actually the partners in a Chinese company, Chinese communist company, that makes the kind of satellite spy balloons that Joe Biden let flow all the way across the country before finally shooting it down over the ocean after, unfortunately, all of the data, all the purloined data had already been emailed, or I should say, sent back by computer to Beijing. By the way, the experts tell us that that particular satellite balloon is designed to fly at much, much, much higher altitudes where it obviously would not be detected. The experts I respect tell me that the Chinese use literally hundreds of balloons. They're trying to put together a digital image of the United States at the same time that a disproportionate number of military-age single men cross into our southern border. So that kind of took care of Kelly. I think there was a brief idea that they could get this fellow, I think his name is Beshear, who was the governor of Kentucky, but Donald Trump is so popular in Kentucky, Kentucky could not be flipped. I think they even looked at the governor of North Carolina, the same problem. And we came back to Walz, but it doesn't look to me like they vetted him extraordinarily well. I think a number of these issue positions are truly, truly problematic. This guy, soft on crime, waited 3 days before calling in the National Guard when the Twin Cities were burning, ignored the mayor's request, then afterwards blamed the mayor. Yet this whole meme created by those who are trying to perpetrate Kamalamania on us that JD is weird, but Tim Walz is just a regular guy. This guy is as strange. He acts as strange. Just his body movements. He seems very excitable. I think a guy who wants to put tampons in every public men's room and in the boys' room in the public schools. I'm sorry, but I think that's weird. That's just weird.
Absolutely weird. And, if you parallel that to what J.D. Vance has done, during his short tenure in Senate, I mean, he's fought for the Ohioans that were impacted by the derailment in East Palestine. And that's a site that the Biden administration totally ignored, right? J.D. Vance caused a lot of attention to that. He's actually passed legislation, the Railway Safety Act, which is going to further mitigate any train derailments. He's been tough on China. He's been tough on big tech. And he's also fought illegal immigration at every step of the way. And he's introduced legislation that would prevent our taxpayer dollars to fund the health care of illegal aliens. He's cracked down on illegal visa overstays. I mean, J.D. Vance's his entire time in the Senate has been, totally aligned with what, the America First movement has been about and what the American public are demanding out of our elected officials.
I think the attacks on J.D. Vance are born of elitism. They're born of snobbery. He came up the hard way. He had a hard scrabble background. He has earned everything that he has. He does believe in family values. Yes, he does favor a child tax credit, which of course Kamala Harris was opposed to. I really believe, by the way, he's the same age Richard Nixon was when he joined the ticket with Eisenhower. I loved it when he went to Kamala Harris's plane and called her out because she's trying to duck interviews, no one-on-one interviews, no press conferences. I think this is going to turn out to be one of Donald Trump's more brilliant decisions. I think I'll be borne out about that. We're going to go to a quick break here. We're listening to J.R. Majewski, Air Force veteran, who was viciously smeared by the Associated Press and the Democrats in an illegal, illicit, dirty trick, but who has bounced back to be completely and totally exonerated, and who is now dedicating his political activity to electing Donald Trump and putting him back in the White House. Also, I'll remind you, we are going to be taking your calls again. 848-9222, 848-9222. Just don't go away because, folks, we'll be right back.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Roger Stone. This is the Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC Radio. We are indeed the crown jewel of AM radio. I urge you to go to the App Store right now and download the 77 WABC app to your phone so you can always hear the great programming we have here at 77 WABC, whether it's my good friend Larry Kudlow, whose show I did yesterday, or my good friend Sid Rosenberg in the morning, or my crazy friend Frank Morano after midnight. All great entertaining. You don't want to miss any of it. So please go download the 77 WABC app. We're back here with J.R. Majewski, who is a proud Air Force veteran, a man subjected to one of the most vicious, dirty tricks I have ever seen, which I believe cost him a congressional race. He was closing in on Mary Kaptur, who has been there way too long, basically a stooge for Nancy Pelosi, who controls her vote on everything, who is, I think, I'm ashamed to say, a Hungarian, as I am, but it was time for her to go. It's still time for her to go. I don't have a feeling, JR, that your political career is not over. I think your time will come. And what they did to you, as President Trump himself said on Truth Social, was atrocious, was outrageous. It is extraordinary now what they're trying to pull, this creating what I call a psyop where they're trying to say that, first of all, that we're weird? No. Yeah. I would say they're weird. When you have an admiral who's a man but wears women's clothes and heads the Department of HHS, no, I'm sorry. I think that's weird. Sorry. And it's amazing the way they have really tried to undercut J.D. Vance. I think they're making a huge mistake. I think it was the right choice, mainly because, and there are some other good men and women considered, but J.D. Vance has proven in the Senate he's not an establishment country club Republican. He's not an establishment Republican. He is an America First Republican. He's a Make America Great Republican, and he clearly has an enormous amount of courage. I think those who denigrate him make a gigantic mistake, and I really do think much of it is cultural. These elitist progressives, they really look down on people who at one time had to make a living with their hands. They've gone from being the party of the workers to being the party of the elites.
Mm-hmm. And you're right, Roger. You're exactly right. And J.D. Vance is the first post 9/11 veteran that nominated by a major party, and he's come from absolutely nowhere and nothing. Like he said multiple times, and the voters know that, and it resonates with them. I mean, when J.D. Vance was campaigning again here in Ohio, I watched him sit down and talk with concerned mothers that had children that were impacted and on some occasions even died from the fentanyl epidemic. And J.D. Vance has a close personal family relationship with that. And then I've seen him jump in a car and drive an hour north and hype up a crowd of 1,000 or more people that were excited to get out and vote for him and vote for Donald Trump. So I mean, J.D. Vance is someone that resonates with the average American, but he's very intelligent, he's very intellectual, and you don't come from Southern Ohio and Appalachia and rise to fame the way JD has by being a non-intellectual, and I think that's what scares the elitists the most.
In many ways, I think Tim Walz is kind of like the Gentile Bernie Sanders. I mean, he is as far out there, and he makes very little bones about it. He has a very strange career of cozying up to China. From 1989 to 1990, he taught at a Chinese Communist Party approved course in China through a program affiliated with Harvard. He says of his time there, "I've never been treated better in my life. Going to China was one of the best things I ever did." He said, "If China had the proper leadership, there's no limit on what they could accomplish." He said he developed a great admiration and close connection with the Chinese people after teaching there. From 1992 to 2003, Walz traveled to China every summer and even got married. And just as Bernie Sanders had his honeymoon in Russia, Walz had his honeymoon in China. He speaks fluent Chinese. I believe China is our greatest single threat in the world. He doesn't seem to see any potential adversarial relationship there. In 2010, he supported a stimulus package that approved $1.5 billion of grants and overseas to energy companies, including many Chinese firms. Where did they find this guy?
I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. But I mean, again, that's just a distinct parallel from what J.D. Vance has been doing in the Senate. I mean, he's been the voice on awareness on the Chinese government and the potential for them to impact Taiwan, while we've cheerleaded for the Ukrainian government and we've essentially provided military advisory and weapons and funding to a war that where we don't know where this money is being spent. And again, J.D. Vance has been the epitome of that, and that's what you hear from the American people. We are okay with our government helping certain countries, especially those that we've considered allies, but we're not okay with sending billions of dollars without any form of transparency. And again, we can cheerlead the Ukrainian government all we want, but if we're not paying attention to the real threat of China and how they've invaded the U.S. economy, and JD's been strong on that. He's warned about how they've manipulated U.S. steel, and this is the things that the Democratic Party, they want the American voter to be oblivious to.
And I think we have to be absolutely clear about this. Even though CNN insists that there's no evidence, Walz claimed in his campaign materials and his speeches to be a former Command Sergeant Major in the Army National Guard, despite the fact that he did not complete the requirements to hold that rank. He did retire as a Command Sergeant Major, but his rank was later officially reduced to Master Sergeant due to his failure to complete the rank requirements. When the Minnesota National Guard says Walz was not incorrect for saying he served as a Command Sergeant Major, but the former Minnesota National Guard members hold the opinion, as many of them said, that although he served at that rank, he never qualified for that rank. But most importantly, he seems to have lied repeatedly about actually being in combat. The real question, I guess, politically is, do the voters, I know the voters who are voting for him don't care. But the voters who are voting for Trump, of course, are outraged because it is indeed stolen valor. But will the voters in the middle care? Those who may be up for grabs, and that number's very, very small, in my opinion. I think that they will care. That is my belief, because it speaks to his character. The man is a congenital liar. And as every day goes by, we find more proof of it.
Yeah, I agree, Roger. I mean, if you look at my district here in Northwest Ohio, the 9th District, it's predominantly independent voters. And, during my congressional race, when I was leading against Marcy Kaptur, and when the stolen valor story came out, my numbers in the polls dropped almost immediately. People actually consider stolen valor to be a very, very high crime, and it does. It's a testament to your character. It really shows what people are willing to do and say. And if you look at J.D. Vance's military career and how he's carried himself, I mean, he's a combat veteran. I know he was a correspondent in the Marine Corps, but the guy served in Iraq, and all you need to be qualified as a combat veteran is to receive imminent danger, hostile fire pay, or be deployed in theater, all of which J.D. Vance meets. Those requirements he meets. But in the 5 years that he's been in politics now, you've not once heard J.D. Vance say that he's a combat veteran. He just simply states that he served in the Marine Corps. And I think that really is the true testament of character between these two men. One lies, one embellishes, and the other is very, very humble and respectful. I mean, and you can look at his legislation, right? J.D. Vance is introduced legislation to expand medical benefits for retired guardsmen and reservists. And in Ohio, he's nominated 30 students to military service academies. That's great. I mean, and that's J.D. Vance.
All right, I'm afraid we have to end it there. I want to thank my friend J.R. Majewski, proud Air Force veteran, MAGA activist, and a great all-around America, for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show. Folks, don't go away. Dr. Robert Epstein, who is one of the most brilliant men I have ever met, is going to tell us how Google has been manipulating all of our information. Don't go away. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Roger Stone Show, and if you don't have the privilege of living in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area where I grew up, remember, you can always listen to us any place you can see the sky by going to WABCradio.com. We're live streaming. I think it's in 173 countries around the world now, so there's never an excuse to miss the great programming we have here at 77 WABC. I love Liz Radabali, and I recognize she's doing her job by reading wire copy. But when I went back and read the AP story, actually what Joe Biden said initially was he was not confident that there would be a peaceful transfer of power if Trump won. That's what he said at first. Then he corrected himself and said, and Liz was right about this, no, he wasn't confident that there would be a peaceful transfer of power if Kamala Harris won. That's, I think, an example of him blurting out the truth, just as Congressman Jamie Raskin did this week. He actually in an interview says if Trump wins, we in Congress are not going to certify his election. I think that's insurrection. If I said that, well, the FBI would be back at my door again tomorrow morning. Anyway, folks, we are going to be taking your calls very shortly. We ask you to go to 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. The phones are wide open. We'll be talking about politics, food, anything that's on your mind. I look forward to this segment. The great Lou Dobbs told me I needed to do more phone calls on the show, and indeed he is right. Joining me now is Dr. Robert Epstein, literally one of the most brilliant men I have ever had the honor of listening to. I've listened to his interviews now for well over a year. He is a senior research psychologist at the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology. He's the former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today magazine. He has a PhD from Harvard University, and Dr. Epstein is a pioneer in the study of new forms of manipulation that have been made by the internet. I speak of information manipulation. He's testified before the Congress because of his expertise in this area, and it is his belief that the flow of information is being manipulated by big tech companies, particularly Google, but not exclusively Google, to manipulate elections, children, and attitudes among adults around the world. He is an amazing speaker, and I really believe this is one of my greatest concerns about the upcoming election. It is Dr. Epstein's belief that in the 2024 election, Google could conceivably be in a position to shift between 6.4 and 25.5 million votes without the people's awareness. Dr. Epstein, thank you for joining us on the Roger Stone Show.
It's my pleasure. Nice to be back.
I listened to our last interview, and I'm still extraordinarily impressed at the incredible work that you are doing. You have a dashboard where people can actually see in real time what you're talking about. We'll repeat that a couple times, but let's lay this out. It's timely because, well, we have a federal court ruling now that says that Google has violated antitrust laws by operating as a monopoly when it comes to search. And of course, search is the centerpiece of how they manipulate data. But tell us more.
Well, sure. For about 12 years now, I've been doing two things. One is looking at new forms of influence that the internet has made possible. I've been discovering them, naming them, and quantifying them. That is, trying to figure out, okay, what can that type of influence do? How many votes could it shift, for example, in a national election? So that's one part of what I've been doing. We've made tremendous progress there, and the more we've learned about these new kinds of manipulations, the more concerned my team and I have become over the years. But the second thing I've been doing is, which is operating right this second, and it's something that we all desperately need, is I've developed ways of tracking, of surveilling these companies, just like they surveil us and our children and our grandchildren 24 hours a day, very aggressively. I have developed methods for surveilling them. So what you will see at America's, with an S, americasdigitalshield.com, americasdigitalshield.com, is you will see a public dashboard that is giving you a partial look at the massive amount of data that we are capturing. Yeah, we are capturing this from Google and Bing, Yahoo, Facebook, TikTok, and other companies. And as of a couple of days ago, I think we had preserved more than 96 million experiences that people have had online involving the kind of content that Google and other companies use to manipulate us and our kids and to manipulate our elections. And we're the first country in the world to have a system like this in place. We are literally gathering data from the computer screens of a politically balanced group of more than 15,000 registered voters in all 50 states. This is with their permission, of course. And we're also now gathering data from some of their children, that's, of course, with the parents' permission. So we're seeing the real content that these companies are sending to real voters and real children, and we're measuring it. We're looking at it very rapidly to see if there are any manipulations occurring, see if there's any political bias. And if you scroll down that page on americasdigitalshield.com, you'll see a bunch of graphs and some blue lines and some blue shading. And wherever you see blue, that means there is liberal bias in their content. And we're not, this is not anecdotal data. This is serious data. This is scientifically valid data that is court admissible. So in other words, we're doing something that's never been done before. We are capturing incriminating data for which these companies can be very seriously punished. And because we're public with what we're doing, we're trying to determine whether or not Google and other companies are backing down. We have gotten them to back down in the past. The question is, can we get them to back down on this election? And this is critically important. It's critically important that monitoring systems like this be set up, because that is how you make these companies accountable to the public. With no such system in place, you have no idea what they're doing, and they're not accountable to us at all.
Yeah, I want to stress that Dr. Epstein is not a Republican. He's not a conservative. He's not really political. He's an academic and a scientist, I guess you would say. And what he's found is quite extraordinary. Dr. Epstein, how does the court's ruling on Google's payments to smartphone manufacturers to make their search engine its default engine align with your previous research on Google's election interference tactics?
Well, this court's ruling, which is the first of its kind in the United States, is very important, because what it does is it declares Google to be a monopoly. And that means that antitrust laws come into play, and it means that some actions could be taken to restrict their activity. Now, this court ruling also reminds us about what's so dangerous about the data that we're collecting. It reminds us that they are a monopoly. I mean, that's now an official court ruling. It's not just a rumor. It's official. And what that means is that when they are manipulating an election, which they are right now, and I can give you some examples of how they're doing it, when they're manipulating an election, it means no one can counteract what they're doing, because they're a monopoly. They control 92% of search in the United States. The next most popular search engine controls about 2% of search. So in other words, excuse me, they're the gateway to knowledge around the world. They're the gateway to knowledge. It's where people go to get answers to questions, including people who are undecided in an election. And those are the people who end up determining who wins. And those are the people that Google can identify very easily, and that Google is manipulating right now, 24 hours a day. And I can, if you like, I can give you some examples of how they're doing it.
Please do so. We got about 6 minutes before the break, and then we're going to come back on the other side of the break and talk to you some more. So, sure, proceed. Absolutely.
Okay, so remember, right now we are monitoring in real time. We're monitoring content that they're sending to the computers of a politically balanced group of more than 15,000 registered voters in all 50 states. And we're collecting this in real time. That dashboard, that online dashboard that I mentioned, is updated every 5 minutes. Here are some of the things we're learning from the data. Number one, right this second, Google is sending register-to-vote reminders to Democrats, and I happen to lean in that direction myself, but they're sending registered-to-vote reminders to Democrats at about 2.5 times the rate that they're sending those reminders to Republicans. Now, think about how big a manipulation that is, because over time that turns into partisan mail-in-your-ballot reminders, which made a huge difference in 2020. And eventually that turns into partisan go-vote reminders. Those kinds of targeted messages on Google's homepage, which we're now capturing. Remember, that information is normally lost forever. It's normally not preserved and leaves no paper trail, but we're capturing it. We're preserving it for the courts and for our authorities. And that is just one example. I'll give you some other examples here. Number one, we were asked by Ken Paxton's office. Now, Ken Paxton is the AG of Texas, which is the largest attorney general's office in the country. He has about 800 attorneys working for him. And that office has been the most aggressive legal entity in the country fighting Google. So they've organized, I think, 49 or 50 other AGs around the country, and have also filed an antitrust lawsuit against Google. So Google hates this guy. They hate Ken Paxton. Well, we just checked this growing database of ours, and we find that Google, when anyone looks up Ken Paxton on Google, they are getting extremely biased content, basically identifying him as a bad guy. Now, again, they control what information people see, and they're sending that negative information about Ken Paxton not just to liberals, but to moderates and to conservatives. They're sending that negative information about Google 24 hours a day to everybody, no matter what their political persuasion. Now, are they always attacking the people who attack them? Remember, Paxton is a conservative, but they're attacking, or they tend to attack conservatives. But another thing we've just discovered is they don't always attack conservatives. If they don't like a liberal, they'll attack a liberal too. So we have a brand new example we just found. That is Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts is running for re-election, and she has also spoken out against Google. She's a Democrat, and Google is attacking her. So anyone who looks up Elizabeth Warren online is getting attack stories from conservative news outlets, and it's Google is sending people to that information. They want to put her out of office. That's how much they dislike her. So in other words, they're not only basically rigging the presidential election on a massive scale, they also will take out individuals as it pleases them. And generally speaking, there are no laws or regulations in place to stop them.
Yeah, I've experienced this myself. If you have to go 20 pages in before you'll find the official Robert Mueller's fully unredacted final report, in which even he admits that he found no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime. Buried. Virtually impossible. In fact, people constantly write Roger Stone's sentence was commuted. That's because Google suppresses the fact that I actually got a full and complete and unconditional presidential pardon. And then last week, we saw graphically how if you looked up assassination attempt on Trump, nothing came up at all. You could find all about the assassination attempt on President Harry Truman by Puerto Rican nationalists, but nothing about Donald Trump. Perfect example of the kind of manipulation that we see going on. If you gave a contribution to my legal defense fund and I put you on my list and you're white male and I sent you a thank you, well, it's going to go to your spam. If you send me another contribution, it's going to go to my spam, even though you're approved. You should be going right to my mailbox. Yet another great example of their manipulation. Folks, if you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC Radio. We'll be right back with Dr. Robert Epstein. And remember, we're going to be taking your calls at 800-848-9222. So we'll be right back.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. Let me remind you, wherever you are on the face of the earth, you can be listening to the show at WABCRadio.com. We're live streaming in 173 countries around the globe, so there's never an excuse to miss any of the great talk or entertainment programming here at the most powerful, influential AM radio station in America, 77 WABC. So proud to be part of the 77 WABC family. We're still talking to Dr. Robert Epstein, who has been studying manipulation of data on the internet by Google and as well as other major silicon giants. What he's found is shocking. We are going to get to your calls here momentarily. That number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. For those who are waiting patiently, we will get to you. We appreciate your calling in. Let's go back to Dr. Epstein. Dr. Epstein, let me ask you this. You have focused and have a huge amount of data on Google. You're tracking what Google's doing every day, every hour in real time. What about companies such as Facebook or Instagram or X, formerly known as Twitter? Have you looked at the potential or the possibility of manipulation on those platforms?
Absolutely. In fact, we're tracking all of them at this point, including TikTok. We're looking especially for things like partisan go vote reminders, because those are very, very powerful. So, yeah, we're tracking them all. Now, on the dashboard, we're not listing, all of our findings. We're just giving people a sample. But I'm glad you mentioned a few minutes ago, that a couple of weeks ago, there was national news about the fact that if you tried to look up a Trump assassination attempt, at least on Google, that was getting buried as if there was no such assassination attempt. Now, that's a perfect example of how they control the information we see, and that's how they also control how a lot of people think. Now, I have to explain here, though, that what we're doing is different and better, because if you go into court with a screenshot showing that nothing turns up when you look up Trump assassination, or that you get some other information back, they take you to Coolidge assassination or something like that, that is not court admissible. That's considered an anecdote or anecdotal data. What we're doing is collecting these examples 24 hours a day by the millions. And so what we're doing has never been done before. We're actually surveilling these companies just like they surveil us, and we're creating a massive database which one can dip into and look backwards in time, or one can adjust what it is we're searching for to customize searches moving forward in time. So we're working with state officials, local officials, members of Congress, and public interest groups, such as Cleta Mitchell's group in Washington, D.C., which is concerned with election integrity. We're working with lots and lots of authorities to try to figure out now, moving forward, how we can use this massive new database to really stop Google and other companies from interfering in our elections, undermining our democracy, and indoctrinating our children. You can't do it without the evidence, and that's what this system is all about. And again, if people want to take a look at it, or if they want to help sponsor one of our field agents, those are the people whose computers we use to collect the data, they can go to America's, with an S, americasdigitalshield.com. That's americasdigitalshield.com. And we're always grateful for any support we can get to build this system larger and larger.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand this is not a profit-making venture. This is so your donations are, in fact, deeply appreciated and necessary because the seminal work that you're doing in this area. So let me ask you, Dr. Epstein, what would your advice be to average voters and politicians as to what needs to be done to ensure the integrity of our elections in the face of the influence by Google, Facebook, and many others?
Well, I've written about that issue very extensively, and what I want to do, just because I know we have limited time, I just want to focus on one aspect of this, which will help your listeners perhaps quite a bit. I want people to go to my website, which is called myprivacytips.com, myprivacytips.com, and that'll take you to an article that I wrote and that I do update from time to time, which begins with the following sentence: I have not received a targeted ad on my computer or mobile phone since 2014. So in other words, it is possible to protect your privacy and the privacy of your children online from this massive surveillance operation that Google runs, and it's possible to protect yourself from it. So if you go to myprivacytips.com, you'll see how I protect myself and my family. And that's, I think, where people should start. People should start by recognizing the extent to which they are being tracked and surveilled 24 hours a day, your locations, your purchases, your online searches, your email content. Every single thing you do is being tracked and analyzed. The information is being bought and sold. And it's that information that gives these companies tremendous power to manipulate you, to manipulate your kids. You know, a lot of parents are just so confused about all the crazy things their kids are saying and doing these days. Well, all of that is being fed to them through big tech companies, all of it. That's where it comes from. And I know because we're tracking that content now and we're preserving it and analyzing it. So protect your own privacy. Start there. Don't be just mindless about the way you use new technologies. New technologies are great in some ways, but they're also extremely dangerous. And remember this: the more these companies know about you and your children, the easier it is for them to manipulate you and your children. So we've got to protect ourselves, as we have to start there, and it can be done. That's at myprivacytips.com.
With these recent stories about the FBI first, and then the Trump campaign announcing that they have been hacked, that there would be hacking, and hacking now laid at the feet of the Iranians. Not sure about that, but it does show you how incredibly porous the internet is, and how easy it is for some of these large digital companies to steal your data. TikTok particularly, which of course became a flashpoint because of their connections to communist China. It is absolutely true. Interestingly enough, also, that now almost a third of voters are telling us in polling that they're no longer getting their information principally from network television or from the cable, like Fox and CNN, but a third of voters now saying they're getting their political information on their cell phones, in the ads, which, you know, if you go on YouTube, first you're going to have to watch an ad before they'll allow you to do the search and see what you're seeking to find. A third of voters disproportionately Republicans, by the way, now getting their information from online ads rather than the more traditional methods of communications to voters. And this has forced us, who are involved in political strategy, to completely rethink the way we try to communicate with voters. Anyway, we're out of time. I want to thank Dr. Robert Epstein, the Senior Research Psychologist at the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology, also the founder of America's, that's with an S, AmericasDigitalShield.com. Go see in real time the amazing work that Dr. Epstein is doing. Dr. Epstein, thank you so much for joining us on the Roger Stone Show today.
Always a pleasure.
All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to be taking your calls. That number, 800-848-9222. I appreciate those who've been waiting patiently. We'll be right back to, we'll call it the Stone Zone on the phone.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and we're going to call this segment the Stone Zone on the phone, because mentally I'm kind of in the zone now to take your questions, and you've been waiting so patiently. So let's go to Dom in Minnesota. Obviously, Dom has some familiarity with Governor Tim Walz. Dom, thanks for joining the Roger Stone Show.
Hey, Roger, thanks for taking the call. You know, full disclosure, I am an independent. I voted for Obama in 2008 and for Trump in 2016. So if in this session, Kathleen, Kamala, and Tampon Tim get into the White House, we will end up with a lot of expensive marble walled bathrooms in schools where kids can get their sex change operations, because Tampon Tim made Minnesota a sanctuary city for this. That's what happened with him here. Not a lot of people know about that.
I think that there was not enough vetting here. I don't think they did a very good job of investigating Walz's entire background. He's got a DUI, or they tried to make a big deal out of George W. Bush having a DUI, which was disclosed in the closing days of his first election, but also this series of lies. I'm sorry, folks over at CNN, you're just wrong. Lies about serving in combat. Not just lies about his time in the military, but lies specifically about serving his country in combat. And he is as far out there as Kamala. The idea of ticket balancing, which used to be a big thing in American politics. You would want, if you were more progressive, you would want a more moderate running mate. Well, those ideas are out. This is the most radical, far-left presidential and vice presidential ticket in history. You have Kamala Harris now openly saying, well, first of all, she wants to hire hundreds more Border Patrol officers, and she says she's going to crack down and close the border. Well, why doesn't she do that today? How about today? She's the Vice President of the United States. She was put in charge of the border. We have to wait till she's sworn in because, well, I think we all know she's not really going to do that. Would she put back in place all of the executive orders that Donald Trump put in place that had slowed illegal crossings into the United States down to a trickle? No. This is kind of an absurd notion that anything would be different when it comes to the border, when it comes to endless foreign war, when it comes to the war on American energy, when it comes to a feckless, reckless foreign policy that steers us towards closer and closer towards World War III every day. When it comes to the inflation that is destroying the buying power of the dollar, when it comes to jobs where they try to say to us, oh, we created 600,000 new jobs, but when you actually look into it, you find that the majority of those are part-time jobs, that the number of hours worked is dropping, and that wage growth is non-existent. So going from Joe Biden to Kamala Harris would be like leaving the dirty diapers on the baby and just changing the pins. I don't know why any voter would fall for that. Dom, I appreciate your call. We very much appreciate your call. Let's go to Tom in Florida. Tom, thanks for calling the Roger Stone Show.
Enjoy the show. Listen, I just listening to the doctor talk. I'm kind of intrigued in the sense. I listened to an interview the other day with Jay Valentine of the Omega for America, and he's doing essentially the same thing on the opposite side. He's targeting these addresses that all these mail-in ballots are being mailed to by the hundreds, and he's trying to catch the ballots before they get to the voting booth and a voting box. And I tell you, the thing that really bothered me was that he says he can't get any help from the RNC, Whatley, or Laura Trump to even call him back. And he's insisting that this election is going to be stolen again by the swing states. The same states doing the same thing they did the last time, and he can't get any help to fend that off. If he can maybe get your ear, if you can get Jay on, if you haven't already had him, he can explain it. It's very intriguing, and what he says makes all the sense in the world as far as the states and what the antics they're pulling. I mean, he's looking at the ballots that are being mailed in bulk to Home Depot parking lots, to Walmarts, and people getting them, filling them out, and sending them in. Now, Watley's insisting that they're going to count every ballot that's going to be counted. Well, those are ballots we don't want counted. And we need them. We need ballots, but we need legitimate ballots counted. And the only way to head it off is before they get there. Thank you again. I've enjoyed the show.
Thank you. Here's a small matter of a political trivia. I hired Jay Valentine as a field man for Governor Ronald Reagan's campaign for president in Connecticut in 1980 and have known him since then and think highly of him. I will look into the status of his technology. But people should not be panicked. This idea that the Trump campaign is flat-footed is not true, that they have no ground game, that is definitely not true. There's a lot there that does not meet the eye. I'm not saying that we are perfectly ready. I was excoriated when I said in an illegally recorded video that the Republicans' attorneys need to have the phone number for the judge in the circuit for voting. But here's what I meant. When they closed down the voting in both Detroit and Philadelphia at 3 o'clock in the morning, the attorneys for the Republicans did not have the phone number for what they call the duty judge. In every federal jurisdiction, when the federal court closed down, one member of the judiciary is designated as the duty judge. That's because if a party has to file an emergency motion of some kind with the court, these usually have to do with health issues, children who may be dying in hospital, a fight between, say, parents, a life and death situation. There's a duty judge in those places where you have to file an emergency motion. Headline: Stone says Trump has judges in his pocket. That's not what I said. What I said is that the lawyers have to be prepared if they find evidence of anomalies or irregularities or illegal contact. They have to take it to the courts. Nothing even remotely controversial about that. The people who criticized me for my comment were prosecutors, ex-prosecutors, people who use their title as an ex-prosecutor to pretend that they're not partisans, like Joyce Vance, for example. She knows what a duty judge is. She knows exactly what I was talking about. But I will look into the question you raise. Let's go to Mortaki in California.
Yeah, this is Kelly Mordecai.
Mordecai, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I've been in contact with people in Butler County, boots on the ground, where the assassination attempt occurred, and where Corey Comparatori was killed, David Dutch injured, and James Copenhagen. What we were trying to do is we were getting petitions to motivate the president judge, Yeager, to impanel a grand jury in Butler County to look at the situation. And I've had conversation with Sheriff Sloop through three-way. So we're gathering signatures. You can even sign online, petitionpa.org. And I want to tell you, I know this might sound a little strange, a county grand jury looking into an assassination attempt. But what happened with President McKinley, this is the same channel as a grand jury. So on Friday, September 6, 1901, Leon Kozelgaz shot President William McKinley twice with a pistol at point-blank range in a presidential greeting line. This was at the Pan American Expedition in Buffalo, New York, inside the Music Temple. Kozelgaz was immediately subdued, arrested, and jailed. McKinley died from his wounds on the 14th, and on the 16th of September, the Erie County, again, Erie County Grand Jury of New York, the Erie County indicted Leon Kozelgaz for murder, and it was a unanimous vote of all grand jurors. And then trial commenced on the 23rd and 24th, and it was unanimous guilty for first-degree murder. And then Leon Kozelgaz was executed on October 29th, 1901, and this was 53 days after the assassination. So we have an attorney that's helping us, and we are gathering petition signatures to motivate the judge. President judge is what they call it in Pennsylvania, but it's presiding judge in other places. And he can order, this is state statutes, 45, 43, he can impanel a grand jury, and the grand jury can look into this. And they're gathering signatures in person. They had a farm show, the Farm Grounds event, again, this last week. And basically what happens is when you talk with somebody, we ask them, hey, do you believe the FBI will do a truthful and thorough investigation? And people just say no. AP poll recently, 70% of the American people doesn't trust the FBI. And so we're getting a 90% plus response rate in signatures. And so I could go more into the grand jury, but it's completely independent if they know their power. Now, it might sound strange that a county grand jury can issue a subpoena upon the feds, but they can. When Senator Lindsey Graham got a subpoena from Fulton County, Georgia, the Fulton County grand jury, Lindsey Graham tried to get out of it by appealing to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and they said, no, you're going to show up. And so he took it to SCOTUS, and Clarence Thomas wrote, basically, you will appear. You cannot pull your congressional privilege. That only applies about legislation. If the grand jury asks you about legislation you're working on, that is your privilege. You don't have to answer those questions, but you will show up. So obviously, if a United States Senator has to appear before a county grand jury, then obviously FBI, Secret Service, U.S. Marshals, whoever else is involved would have to show up. And, of course, they can be jailed for contempt of subpoena. And so this is what we're working on. And, again, I would encourage people to go to the petitionpa.org and sign the petition. One last request, Roger. I would love to get Trump's signature on this. And we have kept Trump's name off of it because of the local jurisdiction. Local is Corey Comparatori, David Dutch, James Copenhagen. They were injured in that county, and that gives jurisdiction right to the Butler County grand jury. So, and by the way, we met years ago, and I gave you a copy of my book. It's called The Hidden Fourth Branch. It's about the grand jury. The Hidden Fourth Branch, A Corrupt Government's Worst Nightmare. I don't know if you remember me.
I appreciate that. I would point out it was Orleans County District Attorney Jim Garrison who began, with a county grand jury, began probing the JFK assassination. So what you say is absolutely right. I think it's an important initiative. I just based on my own book on the Kennedy assassination, my complete understanding of how the Secret Service stood down in 1963, research I'm now doing for my next book on the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan, No, I'm afraid I do not trust either the Secret Service or the FBI to investigate themselves. So I think it is a great idea, and I appreciate your call. Folks, if you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show. This is a segment we call Roger Stone in the Stone Zone on the phone. So I'm in the zone. If you're on the phone, call us at 800-848-9222, and we'll be right back.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
And we're back. This is our final segment. This is a segment we call the Stone Zone on the phone, because I'm in the zone if you're on the phone. Let's go to Judith in Brooklyn. Judith, you've been patiently waiting. Thank you for calling the Roger Stone Show.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. You know, I want to talk about Kamala, but I also want to talk about J.D. Vance, first of all, because I hate the fact that they're making him out to be some nobody. Meanwhile, J.D. Vance, he's a brilliant Yale graduate, attorney. He's a great husband, great father, wonderful values, okay, and a great role model, very inspirational for the next generation, okay? He served honorably in the military, not like this phony baloney Walz, who I think is compromised with the Chinese communist angle over there, plus more. He's completely crazy, this Walz guy. He's, all right. But getting back to what's her name, to Kamala, okay? When I think of ignorance is bliss, I think of her. Perfect for her. She's just so blissfully ignorant that she laughs her stupid head off. But I want to tell you something else. Besides her failure with the border invasion that really, as far as I'm concerned, represents murder and mayhem, and she's responsible for a lot of that, and the inflationary prices on her as well, can you imagine? She is for infanticide, and people, that means killing full-term babies. How could anyone vote for her just based on that alone? I can't understand it.
Well, as you probably know, both she and Walz essentially favor abortion right up until the time of birth. That is just a fact. And no, there is an argument. We've seen the former governor of Virginia talk about essentially abortion after birth. It's what Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the New York U.S. Senator from New York, used to call infanticide. But it does happen. For people who say that it doesn't, that's simply not true. So this is the most radical ticket we've ever seen for the Democrat Party, but it reflects the new reality. The old-time Democrat Party of John F. Kennedy and Harry Truman, the anti-communist, pro-capitalism, pro-free enterprise, pro-free speech, pro-civil liberties, anti-war Democrat Party is dead. The party believes in a strong national defense, like Senator Henry Scoop Jackson, is dead. The party that supported Israel, Harry Truman is essentially the founder of Israel. Democrats like Ed Koch, so strong supporters of Israel, that party is dead as the Democrats seek to have it both ways. They've unfroze $190 billion and gave it to Iran. What did they think was going to happen? Iran, under Donald Trump and his economic sanctions, had them frozen off from all money. They couldn't even sell their oil. The Chinese would not even buy their petroleum because of the tough sanctions. No money to develop their nuclear weapons, no money to subsidize Hamas and Hezbollah so they could attack Israel. Look, we give $1.4 billion to Israel. I support Israel, but I also think it's time to put America first. We need to be spending our money with our massive federal deficit and our high tax rates. We need to be spending on American infrastructure, sealing America's border, and putting America first. But it is amazing the change in the modern Democrat Party, which has been hijacked by a Marxist radical group. It's quite amazing. All right, we're going to take a little risk here. George from Manhattan, refers to my old high school in Katona, New York, John Jay High School. George, what's on your mind?
Yeah, if you get the chance, Google Marilyn Monroe in Wacaboc. There's a picture of her in front of that chapel there. That's where Arthur Miller's agent lived, and they were married over at Castle Rock.
I never knew that. That's amazing.
Yeah, there's another thing, too, that when they left the wedding to go back to Connecticut, one of the reporters got killed.
How did that happen?
All the reporters were chasing them by car, and I guess they crashed into a tree or something.
Very, very interesting. All right, well, George, that is a piece of trivia I'd never heard before. Thank you very much for calling the Roger Stone Show. Folks, I was, in fact, the president of the student body at John Jay High School in Katona, New York. I actually served 2 terms because my predecessor, who was first elected chairman, had academic ineligibility. Therefore, I served most of his term, and then I ran for re-election myself. I won by a count of 986 to 136. The New Yorker magazine, in a profile at the time that I was framed by Robert Mueller, said I was unpopular. Really? Guess they can't count votes. I appreciate your call. Sheila in Manhattan, thanks for calling the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you for taking the call. I wanted to get your opinion about Kamala Harris and her lack of eligibility under the Constitution as a natural born person, because she didn't have parents that were citizens. She was what they call an anchor baby. But nobody on the right seems to be raising this issue, and I don't understand why.
I have read about it. The dispute seems to be between naturalized citizen and natural-born citizen. This has come up before in our history. Natural-born citizen would mean born in the United States. John McCain was born in the Panama Canal Zone. George Romney ran for president in 1968. Governor of Michigan was born in Mexico, the son of Mormon missionaries. Lowell Weicker, the senator from Connecticut, who ran a brief but disastrous campaign for president of the United States, was born in Paris, France. Came up in all those campaigns as to whether they were eligible. I'm not a lawyer. I can't speak to it. I don't believe the federal courts have ever adequately determined exactly what natural born citizen, which appears no place else in our finding documents, means. But you are right. Neither one of her parents were U.S. citizens at the time she was born, but she was born in the United States. So no, it's not birtherism. It's a different issue. Some lawyers tell me it is a legitimate issue, but it's one that they just don't believe that the courts would ever take up. It's interesting. I'm going to read a bit more about it. I saw it mentioned several months ago, but I haven't seen much on it since then. Thank you so much for calling the Roger Stone Show. Let's go to Mary on Staten Island. Mary, thanks for calling in.
Oh, wait, this is Roberta. Hello?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. We have you.
Okay.
All right.
That's okay.
Okay.
I'm very curious how the primary works. I was looking up the Pennsylvania primary, and Kamala's name wasn't even on it. I mean, Biden got 100,000 votes. I mean, who actually wins the primary? Is it Democrat delegates that vote them, or people voting?
Yeah, this is entirely a non-democratic process. Not a single Democrat primary voter or caucus voter anywhere in the United States voted to nominate Kamala Harris for president. This was a coup. Joe Biden won 71% of the vote. He won 91% of the vote. There are about 7,000 delegates. They are not bound. They were bound to him. He released them. Her name was never on the ballot. The party that whines incessantly about democracy and the importance of protecting democracy has done this sleight of hand where only the bosses, the party leaders, have handpicked Kamala Harris, and there is no Democrat input. Black Lives Matter, of all people, pointed this out as an organization, proposed that at least they have a national Democrat primary before their convention so the people could state a preference, and that was shot down. They announced, by the way, that they won't be supporting Kamala Harris because of that. So, look, Trump spoke about this in his press conference. We had a coup here. Joe Biden did not want to drop out of this race. It was only 6 hours before the time he said on a Saturday that there was no circumstance that he would drop out as a candidate, that he was in it to win it. And 6 hours later on a Sunday afternoon, actually while we were live on the Roger Stone Show, Joe Biden threw in the towel in a very strange manner by releasing a letter that wasn't on White House letterhead, a signature of which looked suspect. I think Joe is very, very, very angry about being pushed out of this race. It was a purge. It was a coup. It is as anti-democratic as you can imagine. And here's the other part. Nobody votes at all for Walz. Walz doesn't even require to be voted on by their convention. Never heard of such a thing. All right, folks, I want to thank you for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show here at 77 WABC Radio. I am so proud to be part of the 77 WABC Radio family. Urge you once again to go to the App Store, grab that 77 WABC Radio app. Now, folks, don't go away because my good friend Joe Piscopo will be along in just a second with his great show, Sundays with Sinatra.